since we've got a couple of people in already, I want to suggest one of our websites. I've actually placed it in chat, and let me just bring it up really quickly. So everything we're going to cover today, you'll be able to find at our faculty.wtamu.edu website. And we actually have a section on Zoom. So there's some quick links at the top of the page. And if you click on tutorials for faculty, here's a lot of the basics, which we're not really going over the basics today. We are actually instead going to talk about more on classroom management and engagement today. So if you feel like you need a refresher or you need basics, please feel free to come to this page, and these are some handy videos, including some documents here that are going to help you get started this semester. And we're also in the process of reworking our brand new classroom technologies document. So if you're going to be teaching on campus in a classroom this semester, please know that we have a new document because we got some new cameras and microphones. So it's going to be important that you guys actually select a new mic and a new camera because they're not defaulted right now. And we've got some screenshots on all of that coming. The good thing about, oh, and my video's not even on. Let me turn that on so you can actually see me. Hello, everybody. So when we get those mics and new cameras are in, but they're going to have a better angle. It's going to have, they're actually going to show the whole front of the room. So if you're in one of those regular size classrooms, it's going to be really nice because you're not going to be tied to the podium anymore. You're going to be able to walk up and down. So that those new ones will cover the front of the room. So these weren't put in the rooms with the tracking camera. So if you're in a room with the tracking camera, you still have to do the same thing there. But yeah, we will get that document out. We're planning on sending out an email soon, and we're going to have screenshots so you know exactly what video, what camera, and what audio to select, or what microphone to select on those. So again, if you haven't already, I placed, let me put it in the chat one more time. There's a link in the chat. So a lot of the basics, we're not really going over the basics today. But if you need a refresher, I put a link to our faculty Zoom site, and this has tutorials for faculty. So you might want to bookmark that. It's a great reference. Sometimes you just need a quick refresher on something. These are great documents with screenshots that are going to help you through all of those, helping you get started with all of that. All right, so let me get back to my presentation. And by the way, these are just some sample guidelines, and we'll talk more about this in just a second. Let me see. All right, I've got too many things going on over here. All right, so greetings and welcome. My name's Yvonne Stevenson, and I'm an instructional designer here at WT. So we hope everyone had a restful break and that you're ready to make this new year a great one. And we can't thank you enough for making the time to come and learn with us today. So today's session will cover some important Zoom topics dealing with classroom management and engagement. We're very limited on time, and I have a lot to cover. So if you have a specific question or concern, or maybe a rant, it's probably better that you wait until after the session ends. I'm happy to stay in the meeting afterward, or you can always contact Chris, Krista, myself via phone, email, or just drop by and see us. We're always happy to help and listen. So feel free to ask on-topic questions in the chat. Dr. Favela and Chris are here to monitor, or you can hold your questions and ask them at the end. I know chat is distracting for some participants. They kind of divide their attention, so just keep that in mind. With everything that we go over today, be thinking about how you might adopt a tool or a feature for use with your students in your classes via Zoom. So please don't get overwhelmed by this session. You might not memorize everything we're going to go over because we're going to go over it pretty quickly. But, and also I have to warn you, I couldn't fit this all in an hour. So I may go over But just know that you can always take notes. And at the very end, if you need to leave, please feel free to leave. Don't stay if you've got something else to do, or don't feel like you're going to come off as rude. That's fine. You can leave at any time you need to. Or I know we're all working at home. If you have some type of distraction at home and you need to leave, please feel free to do so. We are recording this session and we'll get recordings to you sometime next week. So if you can't make it after, you'll get the last chunk and you can always review that. And then also everything I'm covering again is on that website that I put in the chat. And you'll get that link to the recording. So nothing here is do or die, especially if you need to leave at any point or you get distracted by something at home, because there's lots of distractions at home, right? So we're going to take a relaxed approach today. We're not trying to stress anyone out. So before we get into engagement, I want to issue a disclaimer. So if any of the topics or tools that I discussed today are not something you want to use, or you simply don't like them, or you don't feel like they have a place in your class, that is okay. You don't have to use them. So nothing here in this session is mandatory. We're not the Zoom police. And the truth is, there's not a one size fit all recommendation that I could ever make that works for everyone's courses. So all I ask is that you please remain positive in any feedback that you give. If you're negative, it can demoralize others or cause a domino effect where the session becomes a gripe fest and unproductive. And I don't think anyone here would actually do that, but I think everyone here is trying to get pumped up for courses, and our team wants to help you get pumped up, which is why we're doing this. So let's talk about easy things to implement for more engagement. So first off, let's talk about meeting reactions. So this is an alternative to chat. Participants can stay engaged by using the reactions located on the participant control. So at the bottom, at the very end, you'll see where it says reactions, and this is what I'm talking about there. So I encourage you to use these in our session. They can help you stay engaged, and they also signal to me that you're following along. So use them to react to anything I'm saying or showing you on the screen. So when you select a reaction, it stays up for 5 seconds. And it comes up on the thumbnail of your video feed. So whether your camera's on or off, it has your name or your picture if you've uploaded one, and it'll show at the top of your feed so I can see who reacted and how they did. So it only stays up for 5 seconds and then it automatically goes away. So you can go ahead and test this now if you haven't. If you want to use this in your meetings, you'll have to turn them on in your account settings through the WT Zoom website under the basic in meeting basic settings. And so we'll talk about how to get to account settings in just a second. Awesome. I already see Jessica and Laura have given me a thumbs up. All right, so now let's move into nonverbal feedback. So you can also stay engaged by using the nonverbal feedback as shown in this picture. It's actually the second row. So the nonverbal feedback is neat because the host can ask a question and then participants can select an icon to communicate their answer. And then it also appears on their video feed. So as a participant, they can select a feedback icon. And then what's cool about this is that the feature actually tallies the responses for you as shown in the second picture. So if you're a host, you click on participants, it'll open up that screen. And then as students answer or as whoever's in your meeting answers, it tallies it for you. So you can give a simple question and then get a quick tally. So I'm going to warn you, these clear after 10 seconds. So don't ask anything super important that you need to record. So after 10 seconds, they go away. So don't ask anything too important. The only thing that stays up is the raise hand icon. So if you want, you can practice raising your hand. And those stay up forever unless the person puts their own hand down or you put it down for them. And the way you, yeah, I see Kelly put her hand up, Taylor did. And so when you put your hand up, that stays up forever unless you put your hand down, or you can always go to your participant menu and lower everybody's hand. And you can do it all at once. So like right now I have a bunch of hands up. I'm going to go to my participants panel and click lower all hands. And don't worry, I'm going to show you the in-meeting controls in just a second. We're just talking about these engagement tools for now. All right, so there's just a couple of things for you guys to stay with me here. Okay, so now let's talk about Zoom polls. So I want to hear from you, and I put together a couple of questions so that we all get to know about the mix of people that are here. And to do this, I have used the polls option. So go ahead and participate in my poll. Give me a second to bring it up. Okay. Sorry, I'm logged into multiple devices and now it's saying you're logged into another device. You cannot use the polling. So let me log out on my iPad. I had it up as a backup, so if something goes wrong, you're gonna have to wait for me. Oh, great, now my poll doesn't wanna work. Give me just a second. I'm going to leave the meeting and re-enter. Give me just a second. And Chris, I'm gonna assign you as temporary host. Don't you just love technical difficulties? Let's see if this will work now. Yay! All right, so I launched my poll. Can everybody see that? Awesome, yes, I got a yes from Lee. Thank you. Okay, so here's my question. What type of courses are you teaching this semester? Select all that apply. So you should see that pop up on your screen. And let me launch the poll. Sorry, I didn't launch it. And then the second question is, what's your level of confidence in teaching Zoom? So you guys can see the poll on your screen, but until I share it, we'll make sure and get everybody's results. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. So I'm going to give everybody a few seconds to answer. So we've got 23 out of 26. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to end the poll now. And I'm going to share the results with you guys. So what type of courses are you teaching this semester? It looks like the majority of you guys are teaching online, but a whole bunch of people are also doing HyFlex. There's a few just in person. All right, and some of you are like, I have no idea what's going on. That's okay, we'll help you figure it out. Okay, let's see for number 2. What is your level of confidence in teaching Zoom? Somewhat confident. Some people are like, I got this, and others don't feel very confident at all. So just know that we're all learning, and it looks like most of us are like, we're good, but we can always learn a little bit more. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing those results. Thank you guys for participating. Let me get back to my presentation. So if you liked the poll feature, as the host, you can create a poll for your class meetings, which has to be done before the meeting. So polling takes a little planning, unlike the meeting reactions, which is why I wanted to show you those first. So when you launch, after you create the polls, then you launch the meeting. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do this. Try not to get bogged down in these steps. You don't have to learn them and memorize them just now. You can always use an instruction sheet as needed or review this video later when you're ready to set them up. So how do we create a poll? You want to create your poll before you're in the meeting. Thus, after you set the meeting up, I'm going to assume that everybody knows how to set up a meeting. If not, we can send you easy instructions. It's easy. Don't just let us know. After setting up your meeting, you'll go to the WT Zoom website. It's at wtmu.zoom.us as shown here. You don't have to do this now, but it's a good website to bookmark if you want to do that too. But this is how you access the more in-depth account settings, like adding a poll or turning on reactions for your account and nonverbal feedback in case you want to use these in your classroom, because I don't believe they're automatically on right now. I think I had to go and turn them on. So Zoom through WT Class is slightly limited. It's the best way to set up your meetings. But the settings you can access in WT Class are not as robust. You don't have all the settings like you would have in the desktop client. So the desktop client in Zoom is the software that actually has been that you've downloaded and it lives on your computer or device. So you want to continue to set up meetings in WT Class for your classes, since that's the easiest for students to access. But the bottom line here is that you have to go to the WT's Zoom website to add a poll to an existing meeting. So when you get to the WT Zoom site, you have to sign in, which is the third option, using your single sign-on faculty credentials, and you'll have to duo, so make sure and have your phone. And by the way, this is not how students log in. This is only for people with fully licensed accounts, and I'll show you how they can do that later. So after you log in, click the meetings button and locate the meeting you want to add your polls to. So you have to click the topic of the meeting. I know it's going to be tempting to click edit, but you click the topic or the title of the meeting, and then you get to the poll options. So when you scroll all the way down, there is a add button. So you'll see all your meeting information go all the way down. And right here it says you have not created any poll yet, and you click add. Once you click add, that'll pop up the poll window to add a poll. So where you see the A, you can title the poll. Right underneath is a box that you can check to make the poll anonymous. If you don't check the box, then the poll is not anonymous, and the name that students joined the meeting with will show in a report that you can run with poll results later. So I made my poll anonymous today, so don't worry, nobody's going to be able to go back and see what you guys answered. So I can't run that report with the poll you took since I made it anonymous, but where there's the B, that is where you type your question, and underneath that box is where you allow users to select either one answer choice or you make it able for them to select multiple choice answers. Multiple choice, more than one answer is what I'm trying to say. So where the letter C is, that's where you can type your answer choices. And as you can see, it allows several, so you can go crazy. You can add additional questions. Just know that any questions you add are all placed on the same screen when launched. So if you don't want to make all of your questions available all at once, then just make another poll to launch at a different time. So for example, I had one poll earlier that you guys took with 2 questions. I have 2 other questions on a different topic for you, but I want to ask that later. So I just created a different poll for those. And so now that is how you create the poll before the meeting. It's pretty easy. If you need to delete a question, there's the delete button also, by the way. After you've added your poll to the meeting, then you launch the poll in the meeting. So that was what was kind of delaying me earlier. I showed you my screen, but then I didn't click launch the poll. And so make sure you click the blue button that says launch the poll. So if you look at the bottom of the picture where the A is, you'll see that where the polls button is for the host to launch it. So you guys are participants, so you weren't able to see that, but that's what you would have seen. That's what you'll see when you have a poll or you have polls available when you're the meeting host. So where you see the B at the top of this picture is where you can select the poll you want to launch. So later, I'm going to click that drop-down menu arrow, and I'm going to see the other poll that I created, and I'm going to select that when I'm ready for you guys to participate in. So once you're ready to have users participate, you have to click the launch polling button in blue where the letter C is. So just because you can see it doesn't mean your students can see it. You have to click launch. So after you launch it, it'll say in progress across the top in green, and you also have a timer. So the black bar under the green bar is super helpful because it tells you how many people have participated out of the total attendees, which is why I said, 23 out of 26, that's pretty good. So you're the only one who's going to be able to see the answers as they come in. And once you've allotted enough time, then you have to end the poll at the bottom of the screen. If you don't end the poll, the results are not recorded. So just remember to end the poll. Don't just close the window when you're done. After you end the poll, then you can share the results by clicking the share results button if you choose to do so. Some people may not decide to do that, but it's up to you. So you'll see a new screen pop up, and the green bar across the top indicates you're actually sharing the results. So once you're done, click those, You can also relaunch the poll as shown in that first picture, but just know that when you relaunch the poll, it's going to clear any previous data. So don't relaunch if you want to keep the answers from the first go round. And also we want to make sure and let you know that you're only limited to 25 polls per meeting. Krista and I found that out before we went on break, and we were like, what? We didn't know that. So if you have a reoccurring meeting for the entire semester, just know that you may have to delete some polls through the Zoom website. It's easy to do. You just click on your meeting topic, you scroll all the way down, and instead of seeing you have not created any polls yet, you'll see your polls as shown there on the screen. There's an edit button or a delete button. So just know that your max is 25, and you might have to delete those if you just have one meeting and you're adding polls every class. All right, so last thing about polls, you can review your poll results at a later date via the WT Zoom site. So again, you'll have to go to that website versus you can't find all this stuff on your desktop client or through WT Class. You have to go to that site. And so the way you do this is you'll click on reports. It's on that menu at the very bottom, and select your meeting. Once you select your meeting, we have step-by-step instructions on our Zoom for faculty if you want to know how to do this. So basically you just log into the Zoom site, click reports. Under usage, you can get a report of who attended your meeting. And that's pretty neat. That way you don't have to take it manually. So it shows you when they entered, when they left, and if they got dropped, when they came back. So it shows you all the logins and anytime they were dropped. And then under meeting, you can access the poll results. So if you rely on these reports, it's important that students enter the meeting with their full name typed in to Zoom. If not, you might get like an abbreviation or their nickname if it's their personal Zoom account. And I'll show you how you can give them the ability to rename themselves. So you might have to, if you see somebody that has a nickname or doesn't have their full name, you might have to, at the start of class, allow people to rename themselves so they get their full name in there, and we'll go over that. It's in the in-meeting controls in just a second. So I'm going to come at you with another tool now. We're going to talk about OneDrive. So in case you didn't know, OneDrive is cloud storage. So if you're familiar with like Google Drive or the iCloud, this is Microsoft's version of that. So you have 1 terabyte of space that you can access from anywhere you have the internet connection. So OneDrive eliminates the need for a flash drive, and you're no longer tied to a specific computer or device for files. So you don't have to rely on, oh, that document was in my office and I'm not in my office today. You can access OneDrive from anywhere that you have internet, and you have the ability to create, collaborate, and share files. So let me show you how easy it is to collaborate live and get live feedback from your class in your Zoom meetings. But again, don't get bogged down on these steps. This is a lot to take in, and you can always watch a video, watch the replay of this, or use a step-by-step instructions sheet to get you instructions on how to do that whenever you're ready, because you may not want to do this on the first day of class. So first you're going to go to onedrive.com. So you'll open up a browser, go to onedrive.com, and then at the top right, you're going to click sign in, and then you're going to enter your single sign-on credentials. So you'll put your username along with the @wtamu.edu, and then you're going to duo, and that's how you get access. So once you're in, this is what it's going to look like, and you're going to focus on creating a new file. So you can click that top blue button at the top that says select a file type like Word or PowerPoint. Once you create and complete your file, you'll see it listed on your screen. And by the way, when you create your file, you don't have to have Word or Excel or PowerPoint on there. These are web versions of that. So you could just create something really quickly on your phone, on your iPad. You don't have to go somewhere where you have the full-blown access for that software. So once you create and complete your file, you'll see it listed in your screen like it is there. Like for instance, this is the presentation I created listed there. So when you're ready to share it, you're going to locate that share button by the file, click on it, and leave the default, which the default pops up anyone with the link can edit, and we want to leave it there, and we'll explain why in just a second. So from that same screen, you can click copy link, and then you can paste that link into the link to your file into the Zoom chat for students to access. As students access the file, you can share your Zoom screen that has the shared file. And then you can watch students update or add to the file live. And so maybe some of you are wondering, why would I do this? What's the point of sharing a file? Well, you can use this as a way to take attendance or as a way to create a participation activity while you're in a Zoom meeting. So you can also create an question and answer slide, or a document where students type in questions that they have as they come up. This would be a great alternative to chat. If chat is overwhelming to you and you're distracted by that, and maybe you're working on one monitor in the classroom and it makes it really hard, just send them a link to a question document and they can type that in there. And so then you're in control. So you give students the link in the chat or place it in WT class, and then you bring it up on your screen when you're ready, after you lecture, or at any point you choose to, and then address what's relevant, hold whatever questions are not relevant for that point, or you can choose to address them in the next class or bring that document up in the next meeting, or decide to address something later with a video, or suggest that someone get extra attention and come to your office hours for that specific question. So you can also use this for group discussions. If you break your students into breakout sessions, have them work in a shared document versus them just talking and getting off topic. And then you're not in the breakout room to see what's actually going on. So this is a great way for them to brainstorm, summarize topics. You can see at a glance progress on a file you share, and you can pop into a breakout session if a group isn't making progress. And we'll talk more about breakout sessions in just a second if you're wondering what that is. Basically, a breakout session is a room within a meeting that you can break students out into. But you can share a document with all your breakout sessions and just keep an eye on their progress. And you can pop in if you see nothing's being done in the document. You can get really creative with this and see things live as they're happening. And that creates a lot more engagement when students participate in a shared file. So just something to think about. So I think these tips should answer most of your questions about OneDrive. So tip number one, share file copies or portions of file copies. So for examples, have a master copy of a Q&A slide or a question and answer document or an attendance document, and then create a copy for each course with the course name, section, and date for easy reference. That way you're not having to clear out the same document or losing documents. Just have a master copy and then make copies for each of your classes and title them appropriately so you can track them more easily. In addition, make sure to use the anyone can edit link option. I know it's going to be tempting because there is an option where you can use only share with those at WTAMU.edu within your institution. Only they can edit and view. But remember, students don't have the at WTAMU.email. They have the BUFFS email. So that could cause problems with them accessing the file. So again, keep it on the default, which is anyone can edit the link. That may change in the future, so it may make it easier. But also make sure to ask students to log into their Outlook email. So they can go to onedrive.com and log in, or they can go to outlook.com and use their WT credentials to log in. So if they log in before clicking the link that you share, it'll hold their login, and anything they do in Microsoft will have their full profile, which will have their name attached to it. So yes, there is a way to see all of the edits and return to previous versions of a file, which is really handy for group work. So you can track who's doing what, who's not contributing. So please note that you can click on the three dots. There's an ellipses by each file name, and it gives you more options. So you need to know that there's a place where you can manage access. So you can stop sharing a file at any point or set an expiration date for access to a file. So you can't set a time, but you can set a date. So it will end access at the end of the day of whatever day. So there are some pretty cool features that allow you to really take control of these documents and see who's contributing. And lastly, remind students that the Code of Student Conduct applies to online environments. So they aren't doing anything they aren't supposed to with anything you share. All right, so now we're going to move on to breakout rooms. We kind of mentioned those. So breakout rooms allow you to split your Zoom meeting in up to 50 separate sessions. So if you had a class of 100, technically you could break them all out into partner groups, which would probably be a better experience for them with less people. So they're great for smaller discussions, so students are able to engage more comfortably in a smaller group. And this might help them feel more connected to the class, especially if they meet with the same group members more frequently. So I know of several faculty that created small groups that students stayed in all semester last fall semester. And the students all saw the same people at least once or twice a week for the whole semester. And at the end, they all reported they felt more connected, they had made friends, and they were just overall more engaged, and they felt more accountable too. They didn't want to let their group members down. So they came to class more often. So let's talk about breakout rooms and what they require. So they do require a few steps. First, you create the rooms, and you can do this in the meeting. You adjust the options for the room. Then you have to actually open the room for users to enter, and then you have to close the rooms to get everyone back in the main room. So there's some little steps that you have to take and click on certain buttons to get it to work properly. So again, please don't get bogged down on all of this. Just know that this is available whenever you're ready to use it. And we're going to go over it quickly, but you can always review the video later, or we have step-by-step instructions. So while in the meeting as a host, so you're not going to be able to see any of this because you're not a host right now, locate and click on the breakout rooms button in the meetings control. So next, you're going to select the number of rooms that you want to split your participants into. So there's those down arrows, and then you can also select how you would like to assign your groups. And so here is where it's up to you, and it really depends on your class. So automatically means that Zoom will split everyone up evenly or as evenly as possible, depending on the math. And then it'll tell you at the bottom how many participants are in each room once you select that. And then manually lets you move participants into specific rooms. This takes a lot more time. So if you do it manually, it's probably not a good idea to do that for larger classes because you'll have to move every single person. And let participants choose a room is probably better for a larger class, or automatically is probably best for largest class. But if you want to keep the same groups, let participants choose their own room, which lets them do just that. They can select and enter any room they want. This works best if you assign groups, like groups 1 through 4, and you just have a list in WT class and students know what group number they're a part of. And when you open up the rooms, they know automatically what room to go into. And that's a lot better for you, so you don't have to manually assign them. And it's just easy for them to stay in the same group. And again, like we were talking about earlier, create those connections. Once you've decided all of that, make sure you click create. And then your rooms are created, but it's not going to start automatically. So they don't start automatically in case you want to manage the room options prior to starting. So it's good to look over the options and select what works for your class. So you want to move all of the assigned, if you select move all of the assigned participants into the breakout rooms automatically, checking that option will move everybody into the rooms automatically. So if this option is unchecked, the participants need to click join to be added to the breakout room. It's an extra step. And if you have dual monitors, that join button can get lost. So I recommend just keeping that at the default, move them automatically. If students self-select a room, you can also disable them from moving into any other groups after you have everybody settled. So you might say, get into your groups, and then you might go in there and change the options while they're in there so they can't move out and move into somebody else's group. You can also, you have the option to allow participants to return to the main session at any time. So if this is unchecked, they need to wait for the host or the co-host to end the breakout rooms. There's also auto close breakout rooms after X amount of minutes. If this option is checked, the breakout rooms will automatically end after a chosen time. And then, like, if you're busy off doing something, you can select notify me when the time is up. Maybe you choose not to automatically close them and you just want to pop up and say, hey, it's been 30 minutes, 20 minutes. So if that option's checked, the host and the co-host will be notified when the breakout room time is up. And then you guys can bring everybody into the main room. And then there's also an option to set a countdown timer. So if this option is checked, the participants will be given a countdown of how much time they have left before returning to the main room. So once you set your room options, the final step is to click open all rooms to start the breakout rooms. And then depending on the options you set, users will have to click join, as we talked about earlier. Or if you didn't select for them to join the room automatically, they'll just be pushed into the room. And if you set it for students to choose their own rooms, they'll see a list of open rooms and they can click to join to enter any room. And so just FYI, the participant screen will flash when joining a breakout room, and sometimes it takes a while depending on their connection. And it's going to look as shown in that second picture there. So the host can join any of the existing rooms by clicking join. So you as the host, when you make the rooms, you can go in any of the rooms. And then you can leave the room by clicking leave room from whatever breakout room you're actually in. If hosts don't join a room, they stay in the main meeting room and everybody else is off in the breakout rooms. So if students self-select and they don't go into a room, it's going to be you and the student in the main room. So you might want to make sure everybody gets into their room before you start multitasking while everybody's in their breakout rooms. Also, as shown in the first picture here, if a breakout group needs help, they can request for you to come into the room by clicking on the question mark. So on their participant controls in their room, there's an ask for help button. And so you get notified as the host that help is being requested, and you can decide if you want to join or not. So you get a pop-up on your screen and it's saying so-and-so asked for help. Or you can click later if you're not ready to enter the room. You can also broadcast a message to everyone in the groups. You might have them discuss various topics and just kind of give them a message, okay, now wrap up that topic and start this new topic. So you can broadcast messages that way. And it's shown in that second picture at the bottom. You just click broadcast message to all. So when you want everyone in a breakout room to come back to the main room, you're going to click close all rooms for the count, and the countdown begins if you set it, and then everyone is sent back after 60 seconds or however long you designated your options for beforehand. And that's how you use breakout rooms. So I really would have liked to have put you guys in breakout rooms and do all that, but since we're so limited on time, I just did screenshots. But it's super easy. Again, it's just a matter of creating the rooms, opening them, and then closing them. It's not really difficult, but we can always help you if you need extra help. Okay, now let's get into classroom management. Now, this is the fun part. So we want to make sure and never assume that students know how to use Zoom. So we've got you covered on how to easily add information on Zoom in your course. So you can add what we call the Zoom in your course module in your course's WT class homepage. So you know your homepage where you click to publish grades. Students don't see that module, but we can add a module like if you use Examity or Respondus Lockdown Browser, how you add those modules. We've created one for Zoom. So basically you just have to click on add course module as shown there on that first picture. And then the very last module, it's called Zoom in your course. So it's alphabetical. It has everything students need to know about Zoom, what to do before the meeting, what to do to access the meeting, and what to do if they get booted out, because that's going to happen. It's going to happen. So remember, don't send students to that WT Zoom website. That's just for you guys to access those deeper settings, because that's only for fully licensed accounts. You want students to access Zoom through WT Class. And if you set it up in WT Class and you add this course module, everything's covered. They'll have everything they need to join your meeting. All right, and then so let me see. What else was I gonna say about this? Oh, okay, so we already covered that still you wanna set up your meetings in WT Class. Okay, so now the next thing. Quick note on your desktop client. So this is the Zoom software that you downloaded. It lives on your computer device. So this is where we could be talking about the computer in the classroom you're using, or we might be talking about your computer at home or in the office. So make sure to update that software to get the latest features. So for instance, we had a few updates over the holiday break. And so there's new features constantly that are being added to Zoom. So always make sure and update that. And the way you do that is you'll search Zoom on your computer and you can find that Zoom that you've downloaded. And then when you log in, you click on your picture or the icon of a gray person if you haven't added a picture, and click on check for updates, just to always make sure that you have access to all of that. Like for instance, the breakout features, the self-select where students can select what room they go into, that's a brand new feature. So if you haven't updated your Zoom, you're not going to see that. You'll only see the manually and automatic. So make sure and update, check it once in a while. Students also have to do this too. So if you update, it's good to remind them to do so. That way everybody in class has the latest features and you guys are working on the same page. So if a student is missing an option, it's most likely because they haven't updated. All right, so we're going to talk about in-meeting controls. Let me bring this over. All right, I'm going to stop my share and I'm just going to show you my in-meeting controls. Can everybody see my screen there? Use your feedback. Yay. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so I need to make sure. Okay, great. Sorry, there's a little option that I have to check to allow you guys to see that. If not, they constantly disappear. So in meeting controls, these are controls in your meeting and they often get looked over. So it's important how to stay in control of your course. So we're going to go over these. All right, so first thing, when you come into a meeting, just know that if you click this green little shield at the top left, there is all of your meeting information. So if you have somebody emailing you or saying, I can't get into the meeting or I can't find my link to the meeting, just click that and you can send, copy and paste, copy the link and your passcode is there and you can get that information quickly. You don't have to go into your calendar and search for it. All of your meeting information is in your meeting at the top there. So now that's there. Oh, and by the way, you can quickly get to your settings for your desktop client and Zoom by clicking the settings here. And so that's going to bring up all of your settings for the software on your computer. Now, there's a lot here that we can't cover, which I wish we could, but maybe we can do another session and we can talk about what these features do, but feel free to go through these and take a look and see if something looks interesting. But I'm going to start here from left to right.
Yvonne,
so yeah.
We're not seeing your screen right now. We only see you.
Oh, I thought, okay, sorry. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Yay. Okay, sorry. So that meeting information that I was talking about, there's a little green shield at the top here. That's where all your meeting information is. You can click copy link and send that and the passcode to whoever can't get into your meeting. You don't have to leave and go find that information. So it's there. You can click this little settings gear here, and that's how you get to the settings on your desktop client. Like I said, there's a bunch of stuff in there. We're going to cover some of it, a whole lot we're not going to get to. Okay, so now I'm going to start from left to right there, and we're going to look at the mic option here. So this is going to be important if you are on a new computer or you're using one of the classroom computers, because remember we talked about that there's a new mic setup and a new camera. So you're going to have to use that if you're teaching in a classroom to select the correct mic. Now we have screenshots on the way on exactly what mic to select for your classroom, since we did have new ones installed, but just know that it's not going to be automatic. It's not set to default to those new mics. You're going to have to select them. So just make it a habit to always start here at the bottom of the screen, make sure and select your correct microphone and video. If you need more advanced settings, you can click on audio settings, and that's going to bring up your Zoom desktop client. You can test things and change through those. If you can't hear somebody or they can't hear you, it's probably just a matter of switching through these and finding what works. All right, so now we're going to talk about the camera portion. Again, you're going to want to select the correct camera in your classroom or at home, and you can switch through these as needed to figure out which one's the correct one. Also, I want to point out that there are virtual backgrounds. If you click that, it's going to open up your desktop client. You can add your own, but just know that we have added a whole ton of WT ones, which is what I have behind me right now. You can choose through a whole bunch of these, and they're really nice, and you can add your own, as I've added there at the bottom. So that's there. Also, I want to draw your attention to the video filters on this second section there. If you click on video filters, there's some easy ways to make your meeting a little more fun and put glasses on. I know this isn't appropriate for every classroom, but I mean, hey, whatever gets the students' attention, right? So just know that that's there. Also, we've got some studio beta effects, which are pretty funny. Ladies, if you haven't had time to do your makeup, but you want to look a little nicer that day, this will get your eyebrows in thicker. You can add yourself some lip color. Guys, you can add yourself some facial hair if you wanted. And there we go. Look at me. So there's a ton of stuff in there. Have fun with it. I don't think it's too distracting if you did a lecture in this, if you feel comfortable doing it, but just know that all of that is there. All right, so let me make sure I went through all of that. Oh, one more video setting. Everybody seems to love this feature. If you click on video settings, it'll take you to the video section. And here is a section that says touch up my appearance. If you have that clicked, it just softens the colors and lines and any imperfections on your face. So if you're working from home, you wake up a little late and you remember you have a Zoom meeting to attend, you can just move this all the way up or down and you look a little better on screen. I like to keep it halfway, that way I don't scare anybody when they actually see me in person. All right, so I'm going to close that. Now, if you don't remember any other thing about in-meeting controls, just remember the security button. This is going to be your lifesaver. This is the button that's your quick go-to to get things done quickly if there's ever a disaster with audio, video, sharing. If you get a Zoom bomber in your class, this is the button that you want to go to quickly. So if you click on security, once you have all your students in, if you want to reduce the risk of somebody who's not in your class coming in, you can lock the meeting. So let's say you have the majority of people in your class, or you don't want any other interruptions, or class is about to start, you can lock your meeting. Just know that anybody left out might panic. So you might let students know that, hey, after 5 after class, I'm locking the meeting. So don't even bother trying to come back. You're going to have to look for the recording. You can lock it or unlock it. Maybe you want to let students in later to catch something you're saying later. You can do that there. And basically you can just check it and it'll tell you you have locked the meeting. No one else can join. Well, I'm going to unlock it just in case if somebody actually accidentally gets booted in, we want to make sure they can get back in. You can enable the waiting room. So for instance, at the start of the meeting, I wanted to check my camera and audio, but I didn't necessarily want you guys to see that. So I enabled the waiting room when I first got in so nobody could get in. But then once I got all that checked, I disabled it. I allowed everybody in And then everybody was able to come in, so they didn't have to see all that. So you can turn it on or turn it off at any point. I know some people get frustrated with that, but it's probably a good thing to have on in the beginning, and just once you're ready to go, disable it, and that way you don't have to worry about manually letting people in. You can hide people's profile pictures. Let's say that's too distracting, or what if you get an inappropriate picture on there? You can hide those or you can unhide them. Also, here's the main controls for allowing participants. You can allow them to share their screen. You can turn that on or off. You can turn chat on and off, which is really nice. So if chat has become a distracting thing for your classes, I've heard it has been in some. We'll talk about more in-depth chat features in just a second, but you can just turn it off. You can just say, nope, I'm going to have it off during lectures. That way there's less distractions. Here's where we said we can have students rename themselves. So for example, here, M. Young. I know that's Mike, but if you had a large class and it's first day of classes and there's 2 M. Youngs or there's several Youngs in your classroom, how do I know who this is? You can allow students to rename themselves. And once you do that, you can actually, people can click on their participants list, and then you go to more and you can click rename, and then they can type in their full name. That way, any attendance reports or polls that you run, their full name comes out. Now just be careful, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Simpsons and how Bart calls Moe's all the time and asks for last name so-and-so, first name so-and-so, and then he says the full name and it's something inappropriate. There are lots of reports that students do that just to be funny. Some students catch on, sometimes they don't, and then you end up saying a bad name. So just beware. Sometimes you do want to allow them to rename themselves, but it defaults to have it off. And then here, you can turn off the ability for people to unmute themselves. And so, sorry, I got distracted with the chat. So you can turn that ability on or off. You can also disable people's ability to start their video. So if that has become a distraction, or if there's something inappropriate, you can stop the video, everybody's video immediately. We're going to go over sharing your screen and annotating, and I'll show you how we can do that, but you can allow students to annotate on anything you're sharing as well. You can turn that on or off. And so you can also remove a participant by doing that. If you click this, it brings up all of the participants and you can remove them. Now this is your panic button here. I'll let that chat get off screen. This is your panic button. Please remember that this is here. If something ever goes wrong, somebody Zoom bombs, there's a loud noise or something inappropriate over audio and you don't know what to do, don't just freeze and let it happen. Click security and go to suspend participant activities. This is your panic button. What this does when you click that, it turns off everybody's mic, it turns off everybody's camera, it turns off sharing, it turns off chat, it turns everything. Everything goes black, including your screen. So you might use this, something may happen behind you or in your space, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want anybody hearing or seeing that. You might have to use that panic button. So just, if you don't remember anything else, remember security and this panic button here. But just know that you're gonna have to, once you click this, I'm not gonna do it now because it'll just close everything. You'll have to turn your mic back on, turn your camera back on, turn all that on. But at least you're minimizing whatever's happening that you need off screen immediately. And I'll show you how to do this individually. That way you don't have to get so drastic if it's not something that you, like a Zoom bomber or something like that. So let's move on to the participants panel. So here is a list of everybody in the meeting right now. And I like to have this up in the meeting. That way I can quickly see who unmutes themselves or who has their camera on. Maybe I don't want them to have their camera on or unmute them. So I can ask them to unmute if I want somebody specifically to talk, or I can click more. I can ask them to start their video. I can tell somebody specific to rename themselves. I can put someone specific in a waiting room if they're misbehaving or we need to talk about something in private, or not talk in private, just we need to move somebody out for whatever reason. You can remove or report a Zoom bomber here specifically. So instead of hitting that panic button, you can go straight to a specific user if you know who's doing what. So that's the participants panel. Also know that if you ever get booted out of a meeting, you can reclaim your host title. You can ask everybody to mute. You can mute everybody upon entry. You can allow participants to unmute themselves. You can allow everybody to rename themselves as a group here. Now, this is a big one. Some people are like, I just cannot stand the ding every time somebody comes in or leaves. If that's annoying to you, open up your participants panel and uncheck play sound when someone joins or leaves. I unchecked that because I knew people were going to have to leave early because I've already gone over. And so just know that that is there. You can turn that off, but you have to do it for each meeting. It doesn't hold it. So play the sound when someone joins or leaves, uncheck that, and you'll have peace and quiet. Hopefully nobody unmutes. And you can enable the waiting room or lock the meeting just like you could in the security tab there. And so usually as people come in the meeting, they come in unmuted, but they want to make sure everything works and they unmute themselves or they turn their camera on. You can just mute everybody. And then when you mute all, you can uncheck to allow participants to unmute themselves. So if you're like, I don't want to hear anybody during my lecture, or we're about to talk about something important and I don't want interruptions, you can uncheck that and then people can unmute themselves. But I want to hear from you guys, so I don't want to do that. All right, so that's everything on the participants panel there. And you can also get your meeting invitations too. If you have somebody like a colleague, maybe you're doing a staff meeting and they're taking forever, you can copy the invitation and email them directly from in here. We've already talked about polls. Let's jump into chat. So you guys probably are familiar with chat. You can turn it off. Now, what I did specifically for this meeting is I turned on the ability to save my chat manually. So at the end of the meeting, I can select save chat and save what everybody's said in the meeting. So it only saves up until the point that you click save. So if stuff comes in afterward, it's not going to save that unless you click save again. And what that does is it saves it directly onto your computer. So if you take attendance, you might tell everybody type your full name in chat, or everybody tell me the answer to this end to whatever, and you'll get a participation grade. You can save your chat that way. And what it does is it puts it in on your desktop, on your local computer, and it puts it in your documents area. Now here, I have chosen to only allow public chats. So I disabled the option for people to talk privately. You can do that just in case. Sometimes it's funny because I'll be presenting and then I'll start getting private chats and it's like, I'm presenting, I can't get to your chat right now. So I turn that off. That way everybody chats publicly. You can have it on to where only they can only chat with the host. So all the questions just go to you. It's not a big distraction in class. Or you can say, nope, I don't want chat on. It's too distracting. And you can just select that and they can't chat. So know that's available. Another thing I wanted to show you, let me see. I'm gonna do my speaker view. By the way, there's different views that you can do. You can have just yourself come up. You can have the gallery view. I'm gonna go back to that. Was there anything about chat? That's about it. Okay, so now the big one, share screen. So when you share your screen, there's several things that you can do. So when you click share, we highly recommend, now this always doesn't happen and people have their reasons, but then when things go wrong, they're like, yep, that's why we told you to share your screen. So you want to share your entire screen if you're sharing something, especially in the classroom or from your office computer or something like that. The reason you want to do that is, I know it's tempting. You might see your PowerPoint or you might see something that you want to share open in your web browser here. But if you select anything else but your screen, you're only sharing that application. And it's inevitable that you're going to want to switch to something else. And then people are going to say, well, I can't see that. And you're going to be like, but I can see it. Why can't everybody else see it? So if you share your screen, no matter what application you bring up, it's going to be visible. Now, some people are like, but I don't want them to see my desktop. And it's like, well, you can click Alt Tab and you can bring up all of the applications that are on your computer. So if you hold down the Alt button and then just tap tab, you can switch through everything that's open on your computer and nobody has to see your desktop. I'm gonna go back to my Zoom there. And so I highly recommend that you do just share your entire screen to avoid that. If you share applications, just know that you have to stop the share and then go share a different application once you're ready. I'm gonna click on, oh, one thing when you're sharing your screen, you wanna make sure that you click share sound, especially if you're gonna play a video or play anything with sound. Especially in the classrooms or when you're at home, what this does is it shares the computer sound with all the users in Zoom. If not, if you don't check that, you play a video and it's trying to pull the sound into the mic versus just pulling it from the computer. So you'll have much clearer sound. The video will go smoother, especially if you click optimize video for clip. If you're playing something that's streaming, make sure you click those two and students will have a better sound experience. I think people didn't know this before, so they would play something and students would say, I can barely hear it. And it's because it's trying to pick up on the mic versus just getting your volume from the computer. So always click those when you're sharing. I would say just keep it automatic because you never know when you want to show a video or play something with sound. All right, now I'm going to go into advanced. Now there's this really cool feature there. If you click basic after you share your screen, there's a new beta feature where you can use your PowerPoint as a virtual background. Now that is really cool, but I couldn't do it today because I had to do the in-meeting controls and it won't do that because it does a virtual background. But basically you can put your PowerPoint and behind you. So instead of having this behind me, I could have my slides and it allows you to adjust or move your video around anywhere on the screen and you're superimposed on it versus students having to divide their attention between the screen with you on it and then the screen with the presentation on it. So I highly suggest try that. The bad thing about that is you can't do a share screen. So either you go through your PowerPoint and then you stop that and then do a different share. So it's not like you can just switch applications. That's another reason why I didn't do that today, but it's super neat. It looks really cool. You can also share a portion of your screen. So if you want, and if you're limited on your screen size, like I know everybody's like so frustrated in those classrooms because you have one screen and you have Zoom up, you have your PowerPoint, you have all these things and PowerPoint comes to the front, or if it's in presentation mode, it has to come to the front. You could share a portion of your screen. Like let's say you bring up your, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. You could bring up your PowerPoint notes here. And so here are these notes. You could share a portion of this screen, still have your notes, and then put Zoom in on the other side of the screen. And then share the screen here, and you could only share like this little square here. But just know if you have to share an application, it makes it more difficult. You have to get it to fit in that square. But that could be a solution. If you're on a tiny little monitor, you could just bring up, we could do half the screen, my PowerPoint, and then the other half, your Zoom controls, and then you can only share this portion of your screen. So that's something to consider if you're working on one tiny little monitor. Let me get back to the controls. So that's one little solution there. So let me go back to share screen. And for those of you who just play music, maybe you don't want to share your entire screen. You just want to share a file of music or sound. If you're teaching a music class, you can show that versus showing your whole desktop. There is a way to show second content from a camera, but we've got it set up to if you use a doc cam, there's a different way to do that. So I'm going to go back to basic. There's also a cool feature that's the whiteboard. So I'm going to click on, actually, let me do a share on that and bring these controls. I know this is kind of hard to see, but can you guys see the controls here? So what's cool about when you share your screen, you have annotation powers. So I could have a PowerPoint up and I can click annotate. I get a second menu, and I like this. So if you had a PowerPoint up, you could click annotate, do spotlight, and do this little wand or an arrow. And then you have like a different icon to draw people's attention to things. So this is a good way, once you share your screen, click annotate, go to spotlight or arrow here, and then you can direct people's attention with your mouse. So that's an easy way to keep people engaged on your PowerPoint versus them kind of just like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. That's there. And then also you can draw things, you can type things. I can scribble on the screen. If you guys want, I'm pretty sure it's turned on. You guys could, I think you guys could probably turn, let me see if annotate is on. Share screen. Huh. Sorry, I'll have to remember how, I'm pretty sure you guys can annotate as well. Let me see. Oh yes, here it is. I don't want to disable annotation for others. Yeah, so you guys can also leave marks on there. If we wanted to, we could hide your names or we could keep them visible just so everybody's accountable for what they annotate on the screen. Let me go back. I can clear that. I can save those. I can add additional pages if I have a whiteboard, but there's all sorts of cool stuff that you can do with this. So I highly encourage that you share your screen, use those annotation tools, keep them engaged in that presentation because sometimes it's kind of hard to follow along. Now let me close that. Let me do a new share and let's look at the whiteboard. I think most of you are familiar with this. It does the same thing. If you choose the whiteboard, there's nothing in the background. It's just a white sheet. And here at the bottom corner, you can add new sheets and it automatically saves them at the end. Anything you do. So you could technically post these on WT class after a class session. So I highly recommend that you use these. If not, use your own items. You can mark up web pages. Just know that you have to clear it if you move pages. So that's a very useful tool. Again, when you share your screen, click annotate or click on the whiteboard when you share and you'll be able to use all of this. It just helps people follow along. All right, so we've gone over sharing your screens. There's here's where you can limit who can share their screen. If you're doing presentations, you probably want to limit it to only one participant at a time or multiple if you want to see several people's screens. And then there's advanced sharing options here. Do we want to have it all on for everybody at the same time or turn it all off? So that gives you ultimate control. Here's where you can pause or stop your recording at any point. I highly recommend that you just set it automatically to record. I know sometimes students come up with personal questions or at the end they might come up with questions. So just keep that in mind that you might want to mute the mic at the start of class and unmute it once you're ready to go. And once class ends, unmute that. But just know that if you pause it or stop it, you have to remember to unpause. So we've had several faculty say, well, where's my video? And it's like, oh, well, you stopped the recording and there's just no way to retrieve that if you don't hit record again. You guys know about breakout rooms now and those reactions. So those are our in-meeting controls. And so I've already gone over. So if you guys need to leave, that's okay. I'm going to go into some other topics now. I'm going to go back to my presentation. But if you need to leave, don't worry. We'll get a recording to you and let me see. And you can have all that information. So many windows. All right, so let me go through this. So let's talk about Zoom Gloom. Now we're still in the classroom management part, but here are some things that we're looking at. So if at any point you need to leave, please do so. Let's get into Zoom Gloom. So Zoom Gloom is a related classroom management topic, and there's a lot of professors, professionals, and researchers talking about this. So Zoom is now And video conferencing is used for everything, and users feel like it's kind of taking a toll on their energy levels. And many have begun to refer to this phenomenon as Zoom fatigue or Zoom gloom. And so let's explore this and consider how it impacts online courses or HyFlex courses. So as you know, humans are always communicating. Even when we're quiet, we're social animals. We naturally read cues off of those people that we interact with, and we do this unconsciously, sometimes without even knowing it really. And so for instance, during an in-person conversation, the brain focuses partly on the words that are being spoken, but it also derives additional meaning from dozens of nonverbal cues. So whether someone's facing you or slightly turned away, maybe they're fidgeting while you talk, or they're inhaling quickly to interrupt. So we pick up on all these things. Now, to contrast, a typical video call requires sustained, intense attention on the words being said. So if a person is framed from the shoulders up, the possibility of, well, and I'm very expressive with my hands, so I guess I don't really count, but the possibility of viewing hand gestures or other body language is gone. So if the video quality is poor, someone's screen freezes, any hope of gleaning some minute facial expression is going to be near impossible. So the prolonged eye contact isn't something we normally do either. Now, I try not to do it because in person, sustained eye contact can be really intimidating, right? Or it can feel overly intimate, like, why are they just staring deeply into my eyes? So in a virtual environment, the eye contact and not being able to get a true sense of your virtual surroundings can cause a slight fight or flight response in a lot of people, and it manifests as stress. And so that might be why a lot of Zoom participants aren't turning their cameras on. So has this ever happened to you? I'm pretty sure this happens to a lot of students because they just get overwhelmed and then they just start focusing on what they look like in camera, and they probably have the camera on themselves on their side. So just think about gallery view, where all the meeting participants appear like Brady Bunch style. This challenges the brain's central vision, forcing it to decode so many people at once that no one comes across meaningfully, not even the speaker at times. And I think speakers are feeling like they have to be overly expressive to hold that engagement, and that can become exhausting. So on a Zoom call, we're engaged on numerous activities, but then we're never really devoted to focus on anything in particular because we're like scanning all the gallery and then whatever's showing on the screen. And psychologists call this continuous partial attention. And it applies to virtual environments as it does in real ones. So our brains are doing some serious multitasking in Zoom, and a prolonged split in attention creates a sense of being drained while having accomplished nothing, really. So the brain is overwhelmed by unfamiliar and excess stimuli, all the while being hyper-focused on searching for those nonverbal cues that we just aren't going to find on camera, especially in teeny tiny tiles. So some are referring this to Zoom gloom. And after so many meetings, you're just still so disconnected. So if you're curious about this topic, just do a search for Zoom gloom or Zoom fatigue to learn more. There's lots of people writing about this. It's really interesting. And for me, it explains a lot now. So it's just something to think about. We're not saying never use gallery mode or never use cameras. This is just some insight on the problems you may be experiencing with students not turning their cameras on. So I know what many of you are thinking. You're probably asking yourself, so do I really have to use Zoom? Do I have to make my Zoom recordings available? Students aren't interacting. I have no idea how things are going in my classes now. Sometimes they don't even show up, and I just can't gauge how my classes are going. So please don't shoot the messenger. Our team is here to help you. And just know that all of the HyFlex format came through A&M and the higher ups here at WT. So please talk to your department heads or deans if you have any concerns about this format. That would be a more productive route to take versus us debating that here. So HighFlex is if you're not familiar with HighFlex, if you're just doing strictly online, HighFlex is a course format that blends synchronous online learner attendance and face-to-face learner attendance. So it blends it into a single course offering that allows learners to choose when and how they attend. So you guys know what flexibility means. Flexibility involves a willingness to change and compromise, and that's one of its definitions. And so many programs at WT are asking faculty to be flexible with in-person courses. So HighFlex gives students the option to choose from attending in person, via Zoom, or watching the recording. So HighFlex isn't ideal for some. You're juggling all those course formats, but during a pandemic, it's probably best to be flexible. So there are several scenarios. Note that there's no one size fits all solution I can give on this, but I'm going to start with the basic tips that can help you set Zoom expectations regardless of if you're teaching HighFlex on campus, in a classroom, or just online. So if you need the basics for using in-classroom technology on campus or Zoom, just let us know, and we're gonna send the email out to you guys soon. So you should get those in your inbox with step-by-step instructions on how to handle the classroom technology. But if you need something outside of the classroom technology, feel free to reach out for us or go to that website that I shared at the start of the meeting. So we have several documents and we have several scenarios, and we can walk you through all of those. So we've got to be intentional and put our expectations in writing and go over them with students. So we've got to spell it out in our syllabus. Here's a sample. Let me go to let me copy this. Put this in chat for you guys. So there's that in chat, and let me get another link while I'm here. This can help with the verbiage. That way you're not having to write anything. Why do I keep doing that? You don't have to write anything from scratch. So I just wanted to have these available for you guys. Let me go back to my presentation. All right. So that first link I sent, it's a sample addendum. That one university is using it. You can amend your syllabus or add that. I know classes are available to students today. So if you already put your syllabus up, you might want to edit it and then re-add a syllabus if you're going to use Zoom. But there's a sample addendum. We also have a set of Zoom rooms in that second link. It's for K through 12, I know, but it makes some really good points about dress, sitting up in a well-lit room, how to position your camera. I know some of you guys just get a camera where you just see the top of people's foreheads, or you see people in bed in their pajamas and all sorts of things. So I think we forget that this is new to everyone. So if we don't spell it out, we can't expect for conditions or the things that annoy us to get better. So remind your students of expectations and rules before your first meeting. Have a slide with expectations before you begin. If you're using PowerPoint, send out announcements, email, course messages with your expectations and Zoom rules. So when you guys came in, if you got here before I started, you saw my little sample that I had up so everybody could read. So you could have something up like that before your class starts. Also, let your students know about consequences with so many choices. So you might want to actually say, if you don't attend class, you make yourself vulnerable to falling behind, or you may miss opportunities to get help from me or ask questions live. Here's why you'll benefit to coming to class. Here's how you miss out if you don't come to class. So in your expectations, tell students when they're allowed to opt for a Zoom meeting or a recording if you're doing that HighFlex format. If you prefer that they come to class, they need to hear you say that, like things like, please come to class, even when you don't feel like it. To be successful, you have to do things you don't want to do. It's also okay to tell them that being tired or lazy can't be a valid excuse for missing class. So, but we also have to remember to say, but if you're sick, please don't come to class. Because we are dealing with the pandemic, and we have to remember that that's the whole reason why we're on Zoom. So if you want to know if your students are getting anything out of your Zoom meetings, maybe they're acting like little zombies, or they aren't turning on their cameras, or they aren't even attending the Zoom meetings live, just ask them why. Faculty at other institutions, I kind of looked around and saw what other people were doing, and faculty at other institutions send out surveys after like the first week of class. We have an option to create surveys in WT Class, and you can get feedback on what works and what doesn't work in Zoom. Ask them, did you get anything out of this? How could I make this better? And you might be surprised to find out that students are getting a lot from your meetings, even though it may not seem like it. So just ask them. Okay, so if you're in a large classroom this is more on HyFlex, if you're in a large classroom that fits your entire class at 50% capacity, then you may decide to be less flexible about Zoom or recordings because everyone fits in your class. So that's just a tip for another semester. You might have a smaller class, but try and get a larger classroom so you can get everybody to fit. So for those large classrooms, you might decide to only give a Zoom link or a recording to students on a case-by-case basis. You can actually hide the Zoom link on your course menu or in the tools, or simply don't add it to your course menu. And we have instruction sheets on how you can do all this, but it's up to you. Some people will say, nope, I'm not putting it on my course menu. I'm gonna wait until somebody requests it and I'm gonna find out why they need it. Some people are saying, yeah, I'm just going to put it in there, and at any time people can use the Zoom link at any time. So if you do any of this, or you can also make it available through adaptive release. Some of you might say, well, I want them to actually do something before they get to that link. If you do any of this, just make sure it's okay with your department. I know different programs have different requirements due to the topics they teach. So you have options for how you give your Zoom links out and how you release your recordings. I know we gave out instruction sheets last semester, but it doesn't necessarily have to go that way. We just wanted to put something out there quickly that had some best practices, but you do have choice. It is still your class. So if you're in a smaller classroom and you can't have all your students in class at 50% capacity, it's probably best for you to always make the Zoom meeting link available and the recording, since everyone enrolled can't be in class physically, even if they show up. And yes, I'm sorry to say, there is attendance drop off in most, if not all, HyFlex courses. There's also ways on setting adaptive release, like I mentioned, on a Zoom link or a Zoom or a video recording that maybe you want to have students do something before they gain access to it. And you can do that if it's okay with your department. Just let us know and we can send you instructions on how to do that. So in those smaller classrooms, it's very normal to see a huge drop in in-person attendance or Zoom from the start to the end of the semester. It's normal to go from full capacity to only a handful of students at the end. So keep encouraging attendance. Try not to take attendance personally when this happens. The world is crazy today, and there's so many reasons to why students may not show up and why they might need more flexibility. So just keep that in mind. So the good thing about HyFlex and Zoom recordings is that if things don't go well at the end of the semester for a student, you can say, well, I gave the student all of the options available. The student still didn't take responsibility for their learning. So you come out on top because you were flexible. So communicate your expectations, your syllabus, give them regular reminders. Don't exhaust yourself trying to be the Zoom police. You're teaching adults, and ultimately they have to be responsible for their learning. You can't do it for them. And if you teach online, you don't have to worry about the physical classroom. So if you're strictly online, yay, you don't have to worry about this. You have it made in the shade. You don't have to worry about HyFlex. You just get your content to students online, and it's up to you if you want to add Zoom as a type of a synchronous option or not. I think it's good to always sprinkle it in online courses. It's a nice way to add connection at the start of classes and throughout. But ultimately, it's up to you. So don't shoot the messenger again. Please, we're going to talk about webcams. So A&M says you can't require webcams. So technically, you can't require students to have cameras on. However, this decision was made back in March of last year when the pandemic first hit, and there was a huge shortage in webcams, and prices for webcams that were available were sky high. So we're not really having that same problem at this point now. And most students have an external webcam or a phone or a device like a tablet or a laptop with the camera or a built-in camera that they can use to attend with their cameras on if they're asked to do so. If you're not happy about this decision, please, or if you think it's dated, given what we know about it, and given what we know about Zoom Gloom and HyFlex, if you think it's imperative that your students have their cameras on, please talk to your department head and deans. You may be able to require cameras for your class or your program, but that's not my call. It's not IT's call to make, really. And to be honest, I really don't want to debate that here. But I will say from an IT perspective, and I know some of you probably have experienced this, if you have students on Zoom who are using phone data because they don't have internet, or if they have low bandwidth because they live out in the boonies, or if that's all they can afford, you may consider limiting camera time because that takes up a lot of bandwidth. The larger the class, the more camera feeds, and that can cause lag times, or students can drop off the meeting unexpectedly. And that's really also a reason why you want to maybe provide recordings of the meeting so that students with low bandwidth aren't penalized if they can't get into the Zoom meeting or stay in a meeting because of their connection. And so again, I know this isn't ideal, but we can make it through this semester. You already made it through the fall. And so I just know now with things will go just much more smoothly, especially since you now know more about those in-meeting controls. And so let me give you, we are finally done. So now let's do a new poll. So I'm going to launch that poll. So here's a brand new poll. We're going to close this up and open the floor up for questions. Have you experienced Zoom gloom or Zoom fatigue? Let us know, yes or no, or I don't know. The second question, how will you handle the webcam dilemma? You're going to require students to keep their cameras on. I will encourage students to turn and keep their cameras on when possible, or I'm going to let students choose what's best for them, or not sure. So maybe you're like, I'm going to talk to my department head, and that's fine because we're all dealing with different situations in our classroom. There is no correct answer. All right, so I'm going to end the polling and share those results with you. So yes, a lot of people are reporting Zoom fatigue. And so it looks like half of you are going to let students choose, and the majority seem like you're going to encourage students to keep their cameras on when possible. And some of you are not sure, and that's okay. So just remember, whatever you require or you want in your class, make sure that's okay with your department head or dean, and make sure you make your expectations known to students. All right, so now it's your turn. I want to hear from you guys. So sorry I went way over. If you have any questions, you can come on camera, on mic, do chat, however you want to ask your questions. If not, you are free to go. Any questions, anyone? All right, well, you guys are free to go. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much. Sorry I went over, there was just too much to cover. I hope to do another session and maybe cover some more things that might be useful to you guys. Thank you.